Mwebale nnyo basebo ne bannyabo. Njagala okussa ekitiibwa mu Honorable Amuriat, Honorable General Muntu, Dr. Besigye ne bakulembeze bannange. Mu ddakiika ntono nnyo kanfunze bino mu Luganda tusobole okuvaawo wano. Okugoberera nga muze mulaba obumenyi bw'amateeka n'effujjo nga likolebwa ku biragiro bya President Museveni ne gavumenti ye, okutta abantu, okuwamba abantu, okusiba abantu, balumba abantu baffe ne babakwata. Ekiro ekyakeeseza olwaleero balumbye mukulembeze munnaffe Lule David Wanika gwe mumanyi nga Selector Devi, ne bamenya ennyumba ye ne bamutwala ab'amagye tetumanyi gyali. Amakya ga leero balumbye amaka gange ne batwala abakozi bange babiri ne omusirikale wange akume waka ne bamukuba bubi nnyo, tebatubulidde ensonga. Olunaku lwajjo amagye galumbye abamu ku baana be tukola nabo, omulenzi abadde ng'avuga emu ku motoka zaffe era makanika waffe, ne bamukuba amasasi gwe bayita akaterega, era omuyakya ga leero afudde. Bino byonna bibaddeyo nga akakiiko k'ebyokulonda tekalina kye koogera wabula okwegatta kw'abo abamenyi b'amateeka, era nga bwe mumanyi nange kannemesa okukola kampeyini ne guno gwaka. Bino tumanyi nti badde babikola kumalamu bantu b'amaanyi na balemesa kugenda kulonda. Obubaka bwe twagala obbawa mu bufunze kwe kubasaba mwenna bannayuganda muveeyo mu bungi mulonde. Tubasaba muveeyo mulonde, kati yemwe ansa. Tusobodde okukola kye tusobodde okukola, naye ffe ng'abakulembeze tuli baweereza bammwe, yemwe ba boosi. Guno omulundi tubasaba muveeyo mu bungi bassebo ne bannyabo mulonde. Ensonga ey'okubiri, bwe mumala okulonda musigalewo mukume akalulu kammwe. Mujje nga mwambadde face mask. Bwe mumala okulonda mukumewo, mutekewo amabanga, mukume social distance. Temulina tteeka lye mujja kuba nga mumenye okuuma akalulu kammwe. Tubasaba mukozese kamera zammwe, mukozese essimu zammwe. Tumanyi nti gavumenti ya Mwami Museveni eteekateeka kujjako intaneti, kujjako network n'ebirala. Naye tubasaba mukozese amasimu gammwe, mukozese kamera zammwe. Naddala awo we balangira ebivudde mu kulonda, mufirimingeewo nnyo, tujja kwetaaga evidence eyo, era tujja bategeeza enamba ko mujja okusindika obwo bu video nga balangirira ebivudde mu kulonda. Tulina app gye twakola, tujja kuba tugibanyonnyolako gye bujja. Naye tubasaba abasebo ne bannyabo muveeyo mu bungi mulonde, ate mukuume akalulu kammwe. Kyasanyu nti akakiiko k'ebyokulonda wadde kasooka kugaana abantu kukozesa kamera, naye nako kalabye nti kya buswavu ate kya bumenyi bw'amateeka, era ne kavaayo ne kalangirira timuli baddembe okukozesa essimu zammwe ne kamera zammwe. Tubasaba mukozese essimu zammwe, mukozese kamera zammwe. Tuyina ba agents baffe abagenda okubeerayo okukuuma akalulu, naye nammwe tubasaba Bannayuganda mukyenyigiremu, temukitulekera. Amateeka gagamba nti akakiiko k'ebyokulonda kalina okuteekawo declaration form oba foomu eraga ebivudde mu kulonda ku buli polling station. Tubasaba eyo foomu mugitunuulire, mugikube ebifaananyi era mubisindike ku eyo app gye bayita YouVote, tusobole okuba nga tukuŋŋaanya mu buli kitundu ebivudde mu kulonda. Nga maliriza njagala okusindika obubaka eri akakiiko k'ebyokulonda, eri Mwambi Abakama ne bakola nabo. Mumanyi okubba obululu gye kwatuusaako ensi yaffe emyaka gy'ekinaana. N'olw'ensonga eyo tukutuusaako okulabula ssebo n'akakiiko konna nti obulamu bwa Bannayuganda miliyoni 45 musasire. Obulamu bwa Bannayuganda miliyoni 45 buli ku bibegabega byo, era omulimu gw'olina toliwaawo nga bosi wabula oliwo ng'omuweereza wa Uganda. Kikakatako okola ekituufu oleme kwejjusa n'abaana n'abazzukulu bo baleme kwejjusa ku lwa Uganda. Maliriza nga nsindika obubaka eri baganda baffe mwenna abali mu bitongole ebikuumaddembe, amagye ne poliisi. Kibakakatako okujjukira nti bano bannakyemalira, bo bakozesa abasirikale ate abavubuka abato, naye bwe baba bagenda baleka abo abavubuka abato abali mu magye ne poliisi nga balina okuddamu olw'ebikolobero bye bakoze ku Bannayuganda oba ku bantu b'ensi ezo. So mbalabula nammwe nti muyina obulamu obw'omumaaso buwanvu nnyo. Tubasaba mubukozese, muwe Bannayuganda n'eddembe lyabwe ekitiibwa, musobole okweyagalira mulimu gwammwe. Mwebale nnyo basebo ne bannyabo okutuwuliriza ku lwa Katonda n'ensi yange.
My colleague, the Honorable Robert Sentamu Chabulanyi of the National Unity Platform, our elder Dr. Kiza Besigye, all of you members of the press, distinguished, invited ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patrick Oboya Muriat of the Forum for Democratic Change. I would like to say that the Forum for Democratic Change is very much in the presidential contest, and speculations of myself allying with General Tumukunde are just mere speculations, and I think should not be taken seriously. We have been on the campaign trail for over 60 days now. We will actually be making 65 days campaigning. And so today, when we come to the close of this particular exercise, much of the attention wants to be given to the actual voting day. There is no need to emphasize the kind of torture that all the candidates have endured during the campaign trail on account of the militarization of politics in this country that has been building up over time. It didn't start yesterday in this election. It's been there ever since Mr. Museveni organized an election. And so this should not come as a surprise, but also we need to get interested in the fact that the scale of militarization has just increased this time. There's been a recruitment of makeshift force under the police force. There has been infiltration of the police force by all sorts of security organizations intended to cause fear not only to the candidates but also to the entire population. Needless to say that there's been wanton killings that we've experienced around Kampala and the other parts of the country. Many of our comrades in the struggle continue to languish in prisons. But the message that Mr. Museveni wants to pass across to Ugandans is that dare me not. And I think this is something that should be the gist of our address to the media this morning. Fellow Ugandans, I would like to speak to you at this point. Casting a vote to elect your leaders is your democratic right. Turning up to a polling station is your democratic duty. And so my call this morning to all fellow Ugandans of voting age and registered to do so is for them to turn up in their numbers like never before as a way to disapprove the dictator and to ensure that we have a new political order in this country. Casting a vote by itself is an expression of your desire to have a leader elected to lead you for the next 5 years under our Constitution. I would like to say to our electorate that without determining the kind of leader that you want to lead you in the next 5 years, you would have failed in your democratic duty. Secondly, casting a vote by itself alone is not a panacea for the person you prefer, your preferred candidate, to be elected. And therefore, I would like to call on fellow Ugandans to turn up again and stand very strong in the protection of their democratic rights by turning what would be a mere piece of paper to something that can be of a consequence to the kind of governance they are going to go through during this particular period. Voter protection, therefore, is paramount, and in doing this, we come together, and I associate with my colleagues, the President from the Alliance for National Transformation, my good friend General Mutu, and former colleague in the FDC, and my brother, the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, from the National Unity Platform, in a joint effort to first of all ensuring that our voters come out to vote. Ugandans have been calling on some kind of unity. Today, you can see that we are united in this struggle. I know that many have always thought that we should, have a joint candidate, but there are different ways to unite, and this is the first step in ensuring that we unite in calling on Ugandans to come and vote and also protect their votes. I would like to sound a serious warning to the Electoral Commission. The so-called Independent Electoral Commission has a constitutional duty to organize a free, fair, and credible election, without which they are just merely a useless organization. In creating a free environment, I would not have expected the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Justice Byabakama, to dissuade our voters from keeping in the polling station, because that is our line of defense. And we draw this line of defense from our own experience as a forum for democratic change. That fellow citizens go vote. There is nothing in the law anywhere written that stops you from staying within the precincts of the polling station to ensure that your vote is protected. And so really my call is for Ugandans to ignore what the Electoral Commission has pronounced very recently, warning Ugandans from staying within the polling station. Please do stay at the polling station, of course, observing the standard operating procedures. Find your mask wherever it is, wear it. Probably if you can afford, carry a sanitizer along with you, so that this is not used and as an excuse against anybody or all of you. I also say to Ugandans that there are machinations that are now taking place. These machinations by the NRM and Mr. Museveni himself, who wants to enjoy longevity of his regime beyond 35 years. There is heavy deployment across the country of the military. As far as the law is concerned, there is a very maximum amount actually, of police personnel that need to be deployed at the polling station. It would be counterproductive for anybody, including Mr. Museveni, to think he would use the army against unarmed civilians who are just going about their democratic duty. And so my clarion call to all Ugandans is take the military and the police as institutions that are meant to defend you and not to torment you. Stand up against any kind of intimidation, because this is your country and there is no other country other than this that you are a citizen to. We are also very concerned as the Forum for Democratic Change about the dispatch of materials to the various polling areas. So far, ballot papers have gone out. No, so this is the claim. But I am particularly concerned about a very, very important element, and that is the absence of the serial numbers that ballot papers going to particular polling stations are assigned. This is important, and I think the regime and the Electoral Commission needs to know that we are awake to the fact that in previous elections, rigging has taken place using that kind of gap that is created by the Electoral Commission. So we want to demand, and I believe I'm joined with my colleagues here, that serial numbers for all ballot papers going to particular polling stations be issued immediately. Finally, from my part, is that our victory, wherever it is going to go, between the three of us, has to be secured. And this is going to guarantee that the victories that we've registered in the past, from the time of our inception as a party, those victories are reclaimed. So, fellow citizens, do not just lie low as Mr. Museveni and his apparatus that, have mastered the art of rigging, take away your victory and your desire to have change coming to this country. As I conclude, I want to address Mr. Museveni to think about this nation more than his own individual selfish interest. Many times we've seen selfishness exhibited even in the campaign, where our hands have been held behind, and yet Mr. Museveni moves freely wherever he wants to go. Many of our people, including candidates, have been incarcerated, tear-gassed, gone through harsh treatment, while Museveni has a free ride in every part of the country that he is campaigning. Think about the nation of Uganda more than your own personal selfish interest. If this election is not run well, the whole process is going to be a recipe for a chaotic Uganda. At the moment, Ugandans have been pushed very, very close to the wall. And I think their only defense is to use their democratic right under Article 3 of the Constitution to stand up against those who choose to violate the Constitution, who choose to abrogate it, who choose to alter it or rewrite it. And this Article 3 is a command to every citizen of this country. And this command, my fellow citizens, must be taken seriously, because Mr. Museveni is just one against 45 million Ugandans. So his selfish interest should not go above the interest of this nation. I thank you very much, members of the press.
Honorable Patrick Amuriat, the President of Forum for Democratic Change. Honorable Robert Chagrani, the President of NUP. I take this opportunity to speak to fellow Ugandans. Politics is at the center of our day-to-day lives. When politics goes wrong, everything else gets negatively affected. We've been unfortunate as a country. In the last 58 years, we've never had any peaceful change. Our deepest desire, even as we participate in this electoral process, is to have an opportunity as a country for once to see change through peaceful means, through an election. We've got an incumbent that is almost doing everything, putting all the plugs to hang on to power. For the last 60 days or so, we've gone around the country talking to our people, encouraging them to participate in this process. And in this collaborative effort, our desire still is to appeal to the Ugandan people to turn up in large numbers, because the regime has been doing a number of things, basically to discourage people from voting, because they know it is to their advantage when there's a low voter turnout. We as the forces of change recognize that the higher the numbers of the Ugandan people who come out and vote, the higher the possibility of putting off peaceful change for the first time through an electoral process. We recognize the problems that are within the environment in which we operate. In a time, any incumbent who desires to hang on to power, they always use force, as they've done. They've manipulated the electoral process. The Electoral Commission, as you notice, the pressures which are exerted onto it, the use of money and all other things that they are doing. So first, whatever you see as the Ugandan people, let not all the problems that you notice discourage you from going into that polling station and voting for change. That's the purpose that we believe us coming together, that can communicate to you, the Ugandan people, that it is our responsibility to do everything humanly possible to put off peaceful change through an electoral process. Two, we are arranging to have a meeting with the Electoral Commission to press it upon them that the number of pronouncements that they are making which are outside the law need to be rectified. One, for them to say that people should not appear on polling stations with cameras or phones. We need to have a transparent election. And for us as candidates, for us to be able to gather evidence in areas where at times our agents may be pulled off the polling stations, we need to capture those moments. It's good for us. It's good even for the Electoral Commission. Two, the pronouncement that people should not stay on the polling station. That's outside the law. The law talks about staying 100 meters away from a polling station. The only thing that they need to do in that regard is to encourage people to social distance and to have masks. But for people staying on polling stations is within the law. We're also working together. We're going to communicate to our different agents and leaders at the different levels to collaborate in vote protection, the mechanisms of which will be worked out by our technical people. Thursday is critical. We believe there can be change through an electoral process. It takes two to tango. We notice there is panic and a state of paranoia within the regime. The situation is more complicated now than ever before. hoping that they can recognize that we are 45 million people, a country that has got a population that is growing very fast. 25 years are going to hit 100 million. One hopes that sense can sink into the minds of those who intend to hang on to power, that there is a future. But only if they remain responsible and do not continue being reckless as they have so far been, it will be good for all of us. For us in the opposition, for them who are in power, even when they lose power, that won't be the end of the world. We need this country to remain together. We will play our part. We call upon those who are in government to play their part too. And we ask the Ugandan people to stand firm. This is our country. We're trying to shape our future. The individuals who are reckless, who are driven by greed, they should not hang on to them. That we therefore need to stand together to ensure that we shape a better future for our country. Lastly, one of the issues brought up by my colleague, Honorable Patrick Oboy, we have received files, part of which there needed to be within the parking list that specifies serial numbers. Those serial numbers specific to the polling stations where the ballots go. We have not received that yet. In the meeting that we seek to have with the Electoral Commission, we hope by that time they will have rectified that anomaly. It is something that we intend to keep pushing. Otherwise, the Electoral Commission will simply be participating in the schemes which are ongoing, quite a number of them. We won't be giving details on the number of things that we know the regime intends to take. We would like to urge the Electoral Commission, the chairperson, the commissioners, to be firm, be bold, which they haven't exhibited so far. But it's not too late. They stand between a peaceful situation and possible problems that none of us desires to get into. They are there in the middle. If they stand firm and are bold, the law is with them. The country will also be with them. We would like to urge the Electoral Commission, don't bow to pressure. There are lives of people, 45 million people. There's a future to look at, to shape, to stabilize. Keep thinking about that until Thursday. And we hope that you'll do the right thing. May God bless you all.
Presidential candidates united and seated before us. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess I was invited maybe so that you recognize that I was here, because as you know, this is really, they are the message for this morning. And I think the message has been delivered in its fullest measure. Let me use the opportunity given to me, first of all, to really congratulate these brave gentlemen that have, over the last 60 days, done everything humanly possible to reach out to all the people of our country. First of all, the campaign time was incredibly short. Uganda is divided into 146 districts. Those are the local governments. So they had 60 days to traverse 146 local governments. 351, I think, electoral constituencies in 60 days. Funny enough, those who are campaigning in one parish to become councillors of a parish have about 6 months to campaign. those to campaign in over 60,000 parishes have only 60 days. And this is by design. As you know, the law and our constitution provides that this electoral process, especially the presidential electoral process, lasts more than a year. And a year before campaigns, any aspirant to become a presidential candidate has freedom to consult widely in the country so that that candidate can make up his or her mind as to whether to become a candidate. And indeed, if one decides to become a candidate, to be fully seized of the situation in the country that he or she wants to offer leadership for. And indeed, to be able to construct the relevant policies on which to campaign. None of these gentlemen had that opportunity. And this was not about COVID. This was well before COVID came. That right that they have to consult within the country about their candidature was never allowed. They indeed sought the Electoral Commission's intervention to make sure that they consult. The Electoral Commission said, yes, you go and consult, but they never left their homes. Especially the Honorable Kyagulanyi tried, I think on a number of occasions, totally unsuccessful. It would end up in pain. And all of them are becoming candidates for the first time, which would make it absolutely necessary for that consultation to have taken place. It wasn't. And so I really want to congratulate them that in spite of the untold obstacles and believable obstacles that have been erected along their paths of expressing their readiness to offer leadership, they have weathered all those storms up to the end of this campaign. The terror that has been meted out on these candidates is frankly unprecedented. I have been a candidate 4 times. And, well, I have seen many moments of deja vu, you know, where I have been before. But there were also moments that I hadn't experienced in the previous election. So the violence, terror, seems to be scaled up every coming election. And that is, I believe, not surprising, because the lower the support of the regime goes, the more they repress it, they replace it with repression and violence. So this election has witnessed untold violence. This was not about COVID. Make no mistake about this, because the regime is not worried about COVID at all, actually. If you go downtown and see how people are gathered in markets and in all kinds of crowds that are milling around town, uninterfered with and regulated, you'll know that this is not about COVID. Indeed, even during this very campaign, the crowds of those associated with the regime were never interfered with. It was only an attempt to stopping these gentlemen to get and the other candidates who are not here, to get to the voters and to pass on their message. So really, I congratulate all of you upon this you know, heroic exercise that you are emerging through. We've seen in this particular election a presidential candidate having to campaign putting on a flak jacket, you know, and helmets. If Mr. Museveni stays in office by the next election, one of the prerequisites to be a presidential candidate will be to certainly procure some kind of an armored trucks from which you can pull out your head in a bulletproof helmet to be able to say anything. It gets worse and worse by the day. So really, I congratulate all of you, and I wouldn't like to certainly water down the message that has already been effectively delivered about the need for this togetherness. The need for this togetherness to fight for people's will to be respected. That is what this is about. And don't forget, Ugandans, that Mr. Museveni must win 50% of the vote plus one to be declared a winner. In other words, more than half of all valid votes cast must be in the name of Mr. Museveni for him to be declared a winner. So it doesn't matter whom you vote for, provided you guard the vote so that Mr. Museveni does not have 50% of voters casting a vote in his favor. He will be out of office. And if he wants to stick, that is also what our togetherness is here for, to make sure that any unconstitutional extension of his mandate is stopped. We must do everything within our power to stop any unconstitutional extension of his office. So some people sometimes tend to get discouraged when they see the forces of change not presenting one person, but that is not the most critical thing, because it is the other one who must win 50%. And so regardless of these, and that's the wonderful thing about togetherness, because if Mr. Museveni failed to win 50%, it means immediately all these would rally behind whoever has the highest vote and into a second round of voting. So everybody should really cast their vote, protect it to the extent possible. And I told you that part of what has concerned me in this campaign is on that side of how we can protect these things and see that our constitution is respected. So thank you very much.